All right, we are going to talk about Trinidad Chambliss taking apart the Arkansas Razorbacks, and we bring in Daylan Flowers, which this is kind of a passion project game for him, from the Rebel Walk to tell us exactly what he saw.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. We are going to bring in Daylan Flowers from the Rebel Walk to talk about Trinidad Chambliss and his star turn over the week against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen. Please give us a like, subscribe, and comment on your way out. And be sure to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every school, college, or pro team also is available. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets across the app. Download it today. So, Daylan, it's really interesting because, listen, we didn't know what to expect from Trinidad Chambliss. So the expectation was automatically, you went way over the top of that. It's something with John Sumrall and Tulane, they're going to have to prepare for Trinidad, and they're going to have to prepare for Austin Simmons. But I'm telling you, if Trinidad does the same thing that he did against Arkansas, against Tulane, he's going to start against LSU.
100%, man. I think a lot of people don't really know about the John Sumrall, Tulane, Troy history that he has, but this is an Ole Miss team that faced John Sumrall a few years ago, the 2022 season opener. John Sumrall was the head coach of that team. And funny enough, the co-DC for Tulane is Taylor Polk, who's a former linebacker from Ole Miss, I think from 2014 and 2017. Lane Kiffin has talked about the Tulane defense this week in pressers and meeting with SEC Network. This is a Tulane team that can play really, really good on both sides of the ball. They're undefeated with some really, really good confidence coming in after going, I think, 9-5 last season under their first year of Summerall. I think Trinidad Chambliss shocked a lot of people, not only just because he had a great game, but his intangibles look like the guy that has been playing in the SEC for 3 years already. This is a guy, Trinidad Chambliss, that obviously comes in from a D2 school and dominated at the D2 level. And sometimes, you have confidence in those, talents, transitioning to the next level, but you never know what's going to happen until you get into those real game situations. And boy, did he show out. First ever SEC game against the Arkansas Razorbacks. And he played to his best of his abilities that I thought he could. Didn't commit a turnover, ran the ball well, and which we know he does really well, use his legs, but on the run, used his arm really well. Showed really accurate throws against Arkansas as well. His deep ball was on point. This guy looks like you brought him in to be QB1. And don't get me wrong, going into the season, Lane Kiffin knew what he had with Austin Simmons. He knew the talent was there. He knew the mental ability was there. And I hear from the fan base, throughout the offseason, why go get this quarterback when you already have Austin Simmons? Or a few years ago when you have Jackson Dart, why go get Spencer Sanders and Walker Howard? Competition is important. Having depth is important. Knowing that you can put in a guy like Trinidad Chambliss when your starting quarterback gets hurt and he can provide 41 points on offense is important in the SEC, and it's important for Lane Kiffin. He knew what he was going to do this offseason. He had a game plan, and Trinidad Chambliss, I was going to assume, was up there at one of the top names, and he got his guy, and it has not disappointed so far for him. So I see no reason for the Ole Miss offense to rush Austin Simmons back. Take your time, especially getting ready to go with Tulane and, of course, LSU the following weekend. But also in the back of my mind is remembering, if I'm not mistaken, after the LSU game is a bye weekend. So you don't want to rush Austin Simmons for any reason. Trinidad Chambliss just showed you he can play at a high level, albeit Arkansas didn't have their best defensively game. But this is a guy that's a competitor. He has the tangibles to be a really good quarterback, which he's already shown in game one of his career at Ole Miss. And I have no doubt that his teammates are going to rally around him and continue to support him as he goes along as the journey for this Ole Miss team.
Yeah, the one thing that concerns me, because Ole Miss is walking a fine line to having a full-blown quarterback controversy if you go too far. But if Trinidad Chambliss plays against Tulane the way he played against Arkansas, you have a full-blown quarterback controversy at that point. I think that might be the reason I heard that Austin Simmons spent 20 hours or so per day rehabbing his ankle last week. I'm sure he's going to do it again this week. I heard that he was in a boot today and Trinidad took the reps. So it's interesting, but Austin Simmons needs to get back as soon as possible because he doesn't want to get Wally pipped. He doesn't want to get injured and not get his job back. That doesn't happen very often, but I'm telling you, with the hype that was generated after the first game of Trinidad Chambliss nationally, Maxwell Player of the Week, the Man Award Player of the Week, if he does that again, the discourse is only going to exponentially get louder.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for me coming into the game, I didn't expect the game to go the way that it did. I wasn't expecting a 41-35 Ole Miss win. I thought it was going to be a scrappy Ole Miss closeout victory at the end of the game, which was happening, but it was a higher score than I imagined. I knew that Taylan Green was coming off of 2 interceptions against Arkansas State, but when he's on point, he can use his legs really strongly. He has a great arm, and Bobby Petrino, when he can call up a game like no other offensive coordinator in the country. But when it came to Trinidad Chambliss, I knew the abilities he had. I've watched a lot of film on him at Ferris State, and I wasn't doubting his abilities as a quarterback, as a leader, as a runner. It just comes to a point where this is the SEC. And as much as, some people may not like the SEC or they're supporting teams that are in other conferences, this is the SEC. It's the best of the best. No matter if you're playing Arkansas, Kentucky, anybody, you're going to get high-level competition from every team that you face in this conference. And when you put that moment on Trinidad Chambliss, again, not discounting the guy, you never know what can be too big for anybody in that moment. First home game, first SEC game against the Arkansas Razorbacks, who were coming in hungry, got blown out last year. Sam Pittman understood that. They were coming in wanting a win and rightfully fighting for a win to get some momentum going into the rest of the season. So for Trinidad Chambliss to come in the way he did, as calm and collected as he did, to continue moving forward when, a few things weren't going right, or making the adjustments when he noticing the linebackers were about to blitz. He played as calm, as collected as a guy, like I said earlier. This feels like he's been playing in the conference for 3 years. He just looked like he owned the game. His teammates knew that they had faith in him. He believed every throw he was going to make was going to be accurate. He believed every run he was going to make was going to get them good yards. And it did just that. And when you have a quarterback that not only has the tangibles like Trinidad Chambliss obviously has, but he's able to back it up with being a great leader, his calm in tough moments, because he could have easily, in some of these moments against the Arkansas Razorbacks, lost his mind. He could have easily forgotten the game plan. There was a moment, at the end of the end zone in the first quarter, I think it was the first drive for Ole Miss actually, where the snap was low and he picked it up and got the touchdown for Ole Miss, giving it to Keywan Lacey. That could have easily been a mental awareness mistake for him in that moment, and Ole Miss could have got 6 points on that drive. So there were moments where you're like, okay, is this guy really going to step up? And he did every time. That speaks into the poise of what Lane Kiffin saw in him, but as well the abilities he's going to continue growing moving forward with more game time experience for Ole Miss. It builds the question now, does Ole Miss, let that linger in terms of who's going to be the starting quarterback moving forward? I don't know. That's not my job. I'm not behind the scenes to know that. But I don't think that's a bad thing to have, in my personal opinion. I think competition is healthy. I think it's great. And I think it's going to give these guys the edge of who wants it more, who's going to work harder, who's going to show it more in practices, who's going to show it more watching film, who's going to show it more leading the group of guys in the locker room during practice, before the game, in the middle game, after game. This is what makes football so great. It's not just about winning games, but it's about building leadership, building camaraderie, and standing out, compared to others. I think Trinidad Chambliss has done that so far, and it's on him to continue doing it moving forward as long as he is the starting quarterback. But Austin Simmons knows the tangibles in. And I think he knew those before he was out of this game. I think he knew that Trinidad Chambliss was a great quarterback. He could do a lot of great things, and, this is the SEC once again, and your job, and technically speaking, is never safe no matter who you are. And I think Austin Simmons knew that beforehand, and now definitely, controlling his injury positively is going to be strong for him, but as well, when he does get 100% healthy, making sure he understands that to keep the things in front of him. And when he does that, he's a really darn good quarterback.
All right, in segment 3, we're going to take your questions. Whenever you ask a question or a comment, please put where you're commenting from. I want to shout out that town as well. It might be Coffeyville, Mississippi, something like that. Just put the town on your comments as well. We will get to that in the third segment. When we come back, we will talk about the Tulane Green Wave in earnest and what we might be able to expect this week and what it's going to look like. Stick around for that. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports site that makes all the right calls that can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in on the NFL. It's quick, easy, and honestly, it's my favorite way to follow along with football. The best part is one of your best picks misses. Prize Picks invented the flex play. So now you can still double your money even if you miss a pick. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's kind of good to be right. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast and whichever audio podcatcher you're listening to, and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but helps keep all of this free. If you want more, join the Insiders program in the subtext link down below. No trolls, 14-day free trial, and the easiest way ever to cancel. So give that a try. And don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Nearly every team, college or pro, they are ready for you. All right, Daylan. We are interested in basically the Tulane Green Wave. What now that there's a little bit of tape on Trinidad Chambliss out there? John Summerall's a heck of a coach. He is. He spent 2018 in Oxford, Mississippi. He went to Troy. They immediately won 10 games, and now he's doing great things at Tulane. He's a good football coach. He's soon to be the next head coach at Kentucky or Florida or Arkansas. He's going to end up with one of those jobs. You can almost bet on it. What do you think John Summerall is going to try to do to take advantage of Trinidad Chambliss?
You know, I think that you're going to see something different than against Arkansas, and I say that because, not knocking Trinidad Chambliss, there wasn't much film on him at this level for Arkansas to really go off on. Now that John Summerall has a little bit of that, but not too much to go off on, I think you're going to see a lot of different packages from the Tulane defense. They're an aggressive front seven. They will try to attack the quarterback, but their secondary has played out their minds over the couple of 3 games that they played. They barely squeaked past Duke this past weekend, but it was a really good game to watch. If you've not watched it, if you're an Ole Miss fan, I would advise you to go check that out. Duke is 1-2 in the season, hasn't had the best season, lost to Illinois earlier this season, but fought really hard in that game. But the secondary looks really good. The secondary provides turnovers for this team. If I'm not mistaken, they already have 6 interceptions on the season, if I'm not mistaken, or 5. This is a secondary that is all over the field. They're going to attack, and are looking to create turnovers. Now, that does emphasize the point that sometimes their moments are hit or miss. They're going for the big plays, and sometimes they will end up missing, which allows the opposition to, be successful or get big plays or get touchdowns. I think you're going to see a lot of defensive schemes from John Summerall and their defense this weekend. I think that they understand the game and plan, which is come in Oxford and do something that has not been done in almost 3 decades for the Tulane Green Wave, and which is coming to Oxford and winning a football game. And I think if you're going to look at that, it's perfect for Tulane. It feels like John Summerall and his staff. So you're going to see a lot of that, but as well, looking at the Tulane offense, I mean, they look really progressed as well. Coming in, I didn't know what Jake Retzlaff was going to look like, but setting the rushing rusher for touchdowns for a quarterback at Tulane just in his 3rd game last weekend against Duke tells you all you kind of need to know. Not the same size stature as Taylen Green, but he can run really well, can throw on the run as well pretty good. And I think he's a great vocal leader. I've heard nothing but great things going on in terms of Summerall talking about him and teammates and even at his former school talking about his leadership role. I think this is a Tulane team that's ready to fight, and they're going to give it their all. I think this is a game that they understand the magnitude of, if they win, what the outcome will be for the Tulane Green Wave football program for this year and for future references. I think Tulane's going to come out here, and John Summerall is going to come out here and give Ole Miss every single thing that they can handle. I really do. I think it's going to be a tough, gritty game. I think that both the offense and defense of Tulane are very prominent, and you're going to see some things that, and I appreciate playing teams like Tulane, because they're not an SEC, so they kind of play a little bit of different football compared to teams you may see in conference play for Ole Miss. But it's a little bit more exciting to see your offense and your defense go up against a team like Tulane that you don't see too often. So I think it's going to be a fun, gritty game. You're going to see John Summerall coach a really good game, and it's going to be a battle of the coaches who makes the X's and O's, a little bit better. Which coach schemes correctly in the Arkansas way as well. Who makes the first mistake? And how does the other team bounce on it? Because both X's and O's from both offenses were great this past Saturday for Ole Miss and Arkansas. But it seemed like whoever made that first mistake was going to lose the game. Arkansas ended up fumbling. Ole Miss wins the game. You're going to see a lot of those moments for Tulane happen this weekend, and expect this Tulane team to fight and compete. Whether they have the lead or not, they're going to have their foot on the gas the entire game this weekend.
All right, Daylan Flowers. When we come back, we are going to answer questions, me and Daylan, from your comment section. Be sure to put where you're commenting from, because we genuinely want to know, because it's interesting for stuff like that. But your comments when we come back right after this. College football is back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalry, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, and prices jumping at checkout. That is why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It is the easiest way to score some last-minute tickets to the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple of taps. Click, click. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about Ole Miss tickets, Georgia Tech tickets, great college football tickets for as low as $25 to get in the door. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Daylan, let's go into the comment section and see what kind of surprises we have. Producer Becky is in the background, kind of monitoring the chat for everybody. Let's see what is going on in this game. All right, we start with Randy Wilbacks. Honestly believe Chambliss is going to be a stud. Reminds me a lot of Taylen Green. Just my opinion. Hotty toddy from Walnut, Mississippi. Listen. He does not remind me of Taylen Green, other than the fact that he can run. But he does kind of remind me of like prime Russell Wilson. He's undersized. He puts a lot of air under the ball on deep passes. He has a little bit of twitchiness about him. Yeah. I think that comparison. I also heard, I guess, them comparing him to Baker Mayfield. I don't know about that one just yet, but I kind of like the Russell Wilson one.
I do too. I remember Russell Wilson in Wisconsin a little bit. I think that is a more suitable comparison just in terms of size. I may have been a little bit younger than that, honestly. Honestly speaking, like seriously. But I remember him really greatly, especially in college and obviously in the NFL. But I think that you're going to see Chambliss kind of symbolize something of that. I think what is imposing to him about Trinidad Chambliss is his size. He utilizes it. He's not afraid to put his head down and make some contact happen with his shoulders and use his size to the advantage of the Ole Miss offense. I saw that throughout fall camp, and I saw that against Arkansas. I think he's a guy that, may not be the fastest running quarterback, but can make a lot of different things happen with his legs, especially in those moments when it's 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2, and you have a read option and you might want to give it to your running back, but you may see the linebacker coming up and he may stop your running back, so you keep it yourself. So I think that's going to be a fun one.
One thing that I noticed, I think it was his first touchdown. It was going to be a zone read, but Kewan Lacey ended up being a lead blocker and scored a touchdown on it. But there was a dead leg for no reason whatsoever going into the end zone. And it kind of reminded me, Kyler Murray was another quarterback that used to do that.
Definitely. You see, I love it because for me personally, watching Trinidad do that, some people may not like it, but I thought it showed a lot of confidence in his abilities and what was going on in the game. And he backed it up to win the game as well for Ole Miss. So I thought that was a really cool moment too.
Yes. Michael Millette says he's a natural. He was a natural in that game. But remember, nobody knew what to expect. Arkansas had to engage Yate because their defensive line is so poor.
Yeah.
And that opened up the secondary. Now, Trinidad made passes. He absolutely made passes in that game. But that's the reason the running was as slow as it was, is they could not get beat by the run game. Because I tell you what, if they'd have played coverage and just dropped back and tried not to get beat, Kewan Lacey would have ran for 160 yards in that game. They had to do what they did.
Yeah, and that's vital for Ole Miss this year. That's something that lacked last year. You didn't have a run game that you could rely on to get you big plays, to get you out of moments. They do now, and even when Kewan Lacey wasn't in the game against Arkansas, they rotated Damian Taylor and Logan Diggs a good amount, and they showcased some good moments as well. I think a prominent run game for a Lane Kiffin offense is very scary for opponents. I truly do, and it allowed Trinidad Chambliss to do a lot of different things against Arkansas Razorbacks this weekend.
All right, next question is from Worthy. He said he felt more at ease as a fan that he would protect the ball. When Simmons is in, I get terrified with every deep shot. One thing that is interesting, and now I'm a huge Austin Simmons guy, and I still am a huge Austin Simmons guy, so don't hear what I'm saying as being anti-Simmons. But there was the play against Kentucky where the snap got rolled back and an interception happened. The quarterback panicked and threw an interception. Against Arkansas, a snap rolled back and ended up under composure, poise, got a touchdown on that play. I mean, that is probably my takeaway as far as poise at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and again, Trinidad has not played at this level for a long time, but he's played a lot of football last year, while Austin Simmons was not seeing as much of the field time as Trinidad Chambliss was this past season. That's going to build. Whether or not, that moment takes over, who's going to be the quarterback for the rest of the season is something we'll obviously see. But there's no reason, in my opinion, to count out Austin Simmons based on maybe what you saw in terms of the interceptions over the first two games, or whether or not he's going to be able to come back healthy. These are both guys that can ball out. These are both guys that can lead this team to the playoffs, which is the Ole Miss goal. And I have comfortability just from what I've seen throughout fall camp and so far this season in both quarterbacks to do the things that Ole Miss needs to do to win every single game that they play this year.
All right, we're bringing up Jeff Sessions says, Steve, why is the defense struggling? Xavion Harris, Will Eccles, Jam Brown, Deshaun Womack, Prince Will, Monmiel, and Suntaran Perkins. We have some studs, but we can't get to the quarterback. I think that is a very nuanced question. Ole Miss on defense needs to have explosive plays. That's what Pete Golding is best at, scheming up explosive plays. Georgia State just didn't throw the ball very much. That's just the way that worked. Kentucky didn't throw the ball very much. When they did, they were able to get home in that one. Taylor Green, they just couldn't catch him, honestly. It was one of those things that they would get back in the backfield and he would just wiggle out and get to the outside. And the lack of explosives is concerning right now, 25% into the season. With LSU coming up next week, Ole Miss defensively, in my opinion, needs to have explosive plays this weekend against the Tulane Green Wave. Jake Retzlaff will throw you the ball. That's what it's just like Taylor Green. When they throw the ball to you, catch it. Ole Miss did not catch it against Taylor Green. That is the difference between winning that game by 6 and winning that game by 20. If we're going to be honest about it. But against Tulane, force Jake Retzlaff to throw the ball and catch it when he throws it to you.
I love that point that you bring up at the end. I think if Ole Miss, if I'm not off the top of my head, I think there were maybe 3 drop interceptions from the Ole Miss defense throughout the game, maybe 2 in the first half. I think if Ole Miss just gets 2 of those, we're not even asking why is the defense struggling. I think those moments change the momentum for the game for Ole Miss. It's not a one score game at the end of this one. I think that Arkansas, let me give props to Bobby Petrino. he called a heck of a game. And in a way, I kind of resemble it's like Mark Stoops last year coming to Oxford. It's like Bob Petrino felt like he had to call the best game of his life. And he almost did that this past weekend. And as well, Taylen Green is a really darn good quarterback. A second year under Bob Petrino, I knew the progression was going to happen for him. But what stands out about Taylen Green as well is that the Ole Miss front seven was getting in the backfield a lot, but Taylen Green's athletic ability, his long legs, his strides, his ability to throw on a run were really showcasing Oxford this past weekend. And they've been shown a lot throughout his career, but they definitely were shown this past weekend. And as well, he made some really darn good throws. You know, there are some plays that I watch back and I'm like, there are some NFL quarterbacks that I haven't seen make those accurate throws, especially on the run like Taylen Green did against Ole Miss this past weekend. Those moments are just going to happen. You're going to face some really good quarterbacks. Like I said with you before the season start, Ole Miss is going to face a lot of good quarterbacks this year, but you're not going to really face a guy that's built, can move, and throw on the run like Taylen Green. Maybe the rest of the season, you'll see some guys like DJ Lagway and Lenore Sellers, and, you know, every now and then Garrett Nussmeier may run around, but not too often. They can use their legs, but not in the way I personally think that Taylen Green showed, you know, this past weekend against Ole Miss.
Yeah, and you have Retzlaff, which is a good warm-up look at John Mateer, who you're going to see a little bit later on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can just pay attention to that. X-Men says he's from Hawaii, 37-17 Rebels. That sounds about right to me. And obviously, Worthy asks, who would you rather have start the rest of the season from South Haven, Mississippi? Listen, I have made no bones about this one way or another. I think Austin Simmons has a massive role. You can beat Tulane with Trinidad Chambliss by himself. You want Austin Simmons back and healthy for LSU, Georgia, and Oklahoma. It just makes your team different. Just remember, Lane Kiffin would not have made the decision he did unless the decision was there to be made. I think Austin Simmons has a big place. Everybody remembers the first two games, his first home game, his first road game. Trinidad Chambliss has played 4 years worth of football.
Yeah.
It might have been at Ferris State, but he's played a lot of ball, and now he's played in front of a crowd, and that's the way it's going to go during this homestand. Right now, in my perfect world, Austin Simmons would probably start, but Trinidad Chambliss would get 20 to 25% of the snaps. That's the way I would do that now. It would be like the Chris Leak, Tim Tebow thing.
Yeah. You know, I'm all in on Austin Simmons. I think he's a heck of a guy, heck of a quarterback. And again, I think Trinidad Chambliss showed his abilities to the world last weekend in a manner that probably a lot of guys couldn't. But I think it's vital to remember this as well, that some of those moments and those interceptions that I think so many people keep bringing up about Austin Simmons, like you said, you know, a drop snap, you know, getting hit from the back. But then those other two, one against Kentucky and one against Georgia State, you know, there was a 19-year-old kid going out there in his first start, in the second game, his first SEC road game, you know, got a little mental awareness going on and trying to make everything happen like Superman. And those moments happen. You know, I think that his tangibles, Austin Simmons' tangibles, are like no other. And when all the cues and pieces are hitting together, Austin Simmons is a really good quarterback. But I also, again, I know the Arkansas front seven wasn't, you know, the best front seven Ole Miss is going to face this season. But I do want to give props to the offensive line this past weekend. They played really, really good. I know there were some controversial penalties on both sides of the ball, but I thought the Ole Miss offensive line played pretty darn good this past weekend.
All right, Jim Mayo from Coldwater, Mississippi. What are the chances that Austin really gets better with the injury? Like I said, at practice today, they told me he had a boot on the whole time, and Trinidad was kind of running with the ones. And it's basically a carbon copy of what last week was. Now, that's not to say that Austin isn't fighting like heck to be the guy. Last week, he spent 20 hours a day or something like that in the training room. They're working to get it done. I think personally, it's more important that he's ready to go for LSU than he's ready to go for Tulane. So if you can press him forward, maybe the LSU game is something that you can look at.
Yeah.
All right. From Vicksburg, both Austin and Trinidad are team players. They want the best for the team, expect packages for both once Austin is healthy. I think that's the best way.
Yeah.
Because Austin is a 1-1 level talent, and you have to keep that in mind as well. I think we'll take one more question. Zach Malavasi, you cannot argue with results if Chambliss continues to protect the ball and throw for 300 a game. That's what I'm saying. If he does the same thing against Tulane, he's going to be starting against LSU. I mean, that's the way that works. It's not a favorite thing. I want the best quarterback out there on the field and the person that's most likely to win the game playing quarterback for Ole Miss. I'm not going to pick a quarterback necessarily, but if he throws for 300 yards and a touchdown and plays like he did last week, he will be starting against the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, I think there's no reason to rush Austin back at this point. I think in that moment where he did come in in that red zone moment for Ole Miss, and they ended up getting a touchdown. It kind of was very questionable for me to why run him in that moment, and you kind of see him limping a little bit more. I think it's easy to forget for a lot of Ole Miss fans that A.J. Maddox is still within the quarterback depth room. He's been here for a few years. He knows the playbook, can run really well, has some great tangibles as a quarterback. So he's also in the quarterback room if Austin is out and something does end up happening to Trinidad. I think that this Ole Miss quarterback room has a lot of strong depth, and Lane Kiffin was prepared for moments as if Austin Simmons is out or Trinidad Chambliss is out. So this team is well prepared for any given moment.
All right, what do you got going on this weekend, buddy?
Oh, man, I am recording like crazy. School is schooling right now, so I'm in my studies like crazy as well, and just a lot of events and meetings and organizations going on as well. Actually, I will be in Memphis Friday for a Redbirds game, so really excited to get out there and see them and see JJ Weather hold a little bit. So that's what I got going on for the rest of this week, and obviously continuing to prepare for the Tulane Green Wave coming into town Saturday. So like I said before with you, it's always good that football's back. It's, I'm in a happier mindset when I'm around football, when the Grove was packed on Saturdays, when I'm in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. There's nothing like college football in you.
All right. Thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you later, bub.
Take care, y'all. Hotty toddy.
All right. Hotty toddy. All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door of Ole Miss. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the show. It helps the show, and it is totally free. Your support means the world to us. And another big moment for Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday night or every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.